For this retro anime review, I'm going to be doing another underappreciated classic from the 80s, and that is California Crisis. This is another one of my favorite OVAs with a really unique art style that I really love, and is one of the OVAs along with some other classics like Bubblegum Crisis or Megazone 2-3 that got me into the anime of that era. So first I'll get into some background on the OVA. California Crisis is a single episode OVA released in 1986. It was directed by Mizuho Nishikubo and produced by his animation studio, Studio Unicorn. Nishikubo is known for directing and doing storyboards on a number of anime. He's probably best known for directing Video Girl I, Akai Kodan Zillion, as well as this OVA. California Crisis was originally intended to be the first part of the story and then would have its conclusion in a sequel OVA. But Studio Unicorn would go out of business shortly after the release of California Crisis, and the sequel OVA, unfortunately, would never be made. Probably the most striking thing about the anime is its art style. It's got a really unique look that is very much of its time, but it really encapsulates the feel of it. The art style kind of reminds me of the art of Eiji Suzuki, who did the art for the album cover for several famous city pop records, namely Tatsuro Yamashita's For You, which kind of adds to the 80s feel of everything. I like the portrayal of California in this anime with the bright blue skies and palm trees. It really adds to the chill, fun tone of the anime. Kind of like the way it's like an idealized vision of California. It's always interesting to see different settings in anime and see how they're portrayed. It's something else that makes this anime pretty unique since it doesn't take place in Japan. The story starts off with one of our two main protagonists, Noera, leaving a bar in San Diego, California in the early morning and heading north up towards Los Angeles. On his way there, he meets our other protagonist, a young girl named Marcia, who's riding her motorcycle up towards Los Angeles when she stops Noera to ask him how far away from Los Angeles they are. While they're talking, they see a chase underway on the highway where some vehicles are chasing down a truck and they get mixed up in the commotion. The minute the vehicles start firing and the truck ends up going off the road and crashing, and Marcia ends up picking up a suitcase from the crash site before the men who were pursuing the truck arrive on the scene, and Noera and Marcia flee together. They stop at a diner to discuss what happened, and they open up the suitcase that Marcia found, and they find a strange orb inside the suitcase. When they both touch the orb, they both end up having a vision of Death Valley. So they get the impression that they are supposed to deliver the orb to Death Valley. Marcia insists on going to Death Valley and trying to find some answers. She hopes it will lead them to a UFO. And eventually Noera agrees to go as well. So they set out on a journey towards Death Valley to try to bring the orb there, while being pursued by the United States military as well as other foreign organizations that are trying to get a hold of the orb. They're not sure what the orb is or what its significance is, but it seems to be something extraterrestrial in origin. And it clearly must be something important since the government is making such an effort to get it back. There's a bit of a subplot where Noera meets up with his old high school friend, Jack, who is part of the military. When they first meet up, he doesn't know that Noera has the orb, but eventually he will be pursuing Noera and trying to recover the orb from him. There's also a bit of a romantic subplot between Marcia and Noera, but it's not really developed too deeply. The majority of the OVA from this point on is really just the two of them trying to make it to Death Valley while trying to evade the people that are after them in the orb. There's a lot of great chase sequences where they're driving down the highway with the military chasing after them, shooting guns and launching rockets at them, and them driving around trying to avoid it. Eventually they make it to Death Valley with the military right on their heels. Their vehicle takes a ton of damage during the chase and they barely make it. Just as the military is about to catch up on them, the orb is dropped into a small body of water at the bottom of a canyon. Once in the water, light radiates from the orb and raises up out of the water and into the sky, leaving behind just the empty glass. So Noera and Marcia are successful in bringing the orb to Death Valley, and it seems as if the alien orb was able to return. It's never really explained what's in the orb or what it is, but I would assume it probably would have been more explained in the sequel, but of course that never came out. Alright, so I'm going to give this one 4 stars out of 5. It's one of those classic 80s anime OVAs that I feel is really underrated. It was one of those first ones that got me into 80s OVAs. This one has a short runtime of only about 45 minutes, but it remains entertaining throughout its short runtime. The action scenes in this one are really stand out. The car chases with all of the military after the main characters, and them shooting guns and rocket launchers at them, and there's all these explosions going on around them, and it looks really great and it's really entertaining to watch. The story is pretty simple and not too developed, but the action carries the anime pretty well. This OVA really has a feel of like an 80s action movie, which makes it really fun. Can't really take it too serious. It might bother some people that it's pretty unrealistic, especially in the action sequences that are really fun to watch and really well animated, but definitely are not realistic. For example, their pursuers pour tons of bullets into their vehicle, and neither of Noir or Marcia ever get hit. The car they're driving takes a ton of damage and is completely falling apart from explosions, but it still runs like right up to the end. They even get run off a cliff at one point, and it just goes off the cliff and keeps like driving down the cliff. But it honestly makes it more fun, in the action. You just can't take it too seriously. I really enjoy the soundtrack on this one, especially the ending theme by Mizuho Fujiwara. It's got a great city pop feel that really captures the time period and really brings some nostalgia for that time period. It's one of those anime like Bubblegum Crisis or Macross that are really iconic of the time period of the 80s. The OVA isn't perfect. It has some flaws, mainly due to the simplistic story and the lack of any real character development. That's to be expected with the short runtime, so you can't really fault it just for that. Plus, due to the sequel being cancelled, it was only half of what was intended originally. The characters aren't really deeply developed, but that doesn't mean they aren't likable. They're entertaining enough and are successful in making you invested in their journey and getting you to root for them. So lacking story in a short OVA like this doesn't really bother me much, but I could see how it would bother some people and leave them feeling like this anime is more style over substance. But if you're a fan of anime of that era, I would definitely recommend giving it a watch if you haven't already. The unique art style really makes it stand out, and it really captures that time period and what made anime during that time enjoyable. So if you haven't already, give it a watch. If you watch this far, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me and will help encourage me to keep making more videos. So if you do subscribe, thank you so much. And until next time, bye.